Think cryptocurrencies are a 21st century invention. Think again. In the Middle Ages, hundreds of currencies operated without any central authority. Monks minted coins, local lords controlled supply, and city-states, they ran economic systems entirely outside of royal oversight. There were no banks, no federal reserves, just a complex network of local currencies, verified through weight, purity, and social trust. In some surprising ways, it functioned a lot like decentralized finance, or what we now call crypto. So today we're digging deep into the roots of money, how this decentralized system worked, why it existed, and what it can teach us about modern digital currencies. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a warning, and maybe a glimpse into the future. Let's begin. Let's define our terms. Today, decentralized money refers to blockchain-based cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the like. These systems don't rely on a single authority like a central bank. Instead, they're validated by a distributed network of computers. But long before there were networks, or even electricity, money was decentralized in another way. It was fractured across political and geographic boundaries. Between roughly 800 and 1500 CE, the right to mint coins was held by a wide variety of people. Kings, sure, but also bishops, monasteries, feudal lords, merchant guilds, and free cities. All of them issued their own money. That meant hundreds, sometimes thousands, of unique coin types in circulation at any given time. Imagine walking across northern France in the 12th century. In just a few days, you might handle coins from a monastery, a duke, a local count, and a city-state. All different weights, all different designs. Some might be mostly silver, others tin with a silver coating. This was not a bug in the system. It was the system. The reason for this monetary fragmentation lies in the political structure of medieval Europe. There was no strong central government in most regions. Power was distributed. The Holy Roman Empire, for example, was essentially a collection of semi-autonomous states, principalities, and bishoprics. Each had the right to issue currency, and they didn't hesitate to do it. By the 13th century, the German-speaking territories alone had over 350 active mints. Some were controlled by nobles, others by cities, and many by religious institutions. Every coin minted represented both economic utility and political power. A lord who could mint coins could fund armies, pay workers, and levy taxes more effectively. It was like printing your own economic sovereignty. But unlike modern fiat currency, these coins had intrinsic value, usually silver or gold. Their worth was directly tied to their metal content. And that's where things got complicated. So without a central bank or a standard currency, how did people trade across regions? This is where the real genius of the medieval system comes in. Verification through trust, habit, and physical inspection. Merchants, money changers, and market officials played a key role in the daily validation of coins. They didn't rely on digital ledgers. They used touchstones, small scales, and decades of experience to determine a coin's value. People got good at this. A skilled merchant could tell at a glance whether a coin had been clipped, debased, or counterfeited. They'd flick the coin and listen for its ring. They'd weigh it, scratch it, compare it. And money changers weren't just traders, they were essential infrastructure. They acted as the human validators of this decentralized network. If you brought in coins from another region, you could exchange them for local ones, at a price, of course. This gave rise to another profession, the assayer, who examined and certified coins for authenticity. Over time, a kind of unofficial reputation system developed. Some coins were seen as more reliable than others. For example, the Florentine florin or the Venetian ducat, minted by powerful trade-rich city-states, became widely accepted even outside their home territories. Think of them as the stable coins of their day. Meanwhile, smaller and more isolated mints struggled to maintain trust. Their coins often circulated only locally. Reputation was everything. There were real benefits to this decentralized structure. First, it allowed for local flexibility. If a region needed more money in circulation, say after a bad harvest or during a trade boom, it didn't need to ask permission from a central bank. The local authority could mint more coins quickly. Second, it created economic diversity. Different regions could issue coins that reflected their local resources. Some minted thick copper coins for small transactions. Others produced thin silver coins for trade. The result was a system tailored to real economic conditions, not an imposed one-size-fits-all model. Third, it introduced a form of economic resilience. If one currency failed, say due to debasement or war, others remained functional. The system didn't crash all at once. It was decentralized by design. In this way, the system shared certain features with modern decentralized finance. It was trust-based, it was resilient, and it allowed multiple authorities to create value independently. But it wasn't all upside. There were significant downsides to this arrangement. Debasement was the biggest. Because coinage was physically valuable, being made of silver or gold, rulers were constantly tempted to reduce the amount of precious metal in their coins. Take a coin that used to contain 90% silver. A desperate or greedy mint master might reduce it to 70% or 50%, sometimes less. This was profitable in the short term, but devastating in the long run. It led to inflation, hoarding, and loss of trust. People began weighing coins before accepting them. Some merchants demanded older coins only, the ones known to have more silver. Then there was clipping. People would shave small amounts of metal off the edges of coins. Individually, the shavings weren't worth much, but over time, and across thousands of hands, it added up. Clipping was technically a crime of treason in some kingdoms, punishable by death. And because most coins didn't have reeded or milled edges, this theft was hard to detect. Counterfeiting was another problem. Without centralized control or modern anti-forgery techniques, it was relatively easy to mint fake coins, especially in border areas or times of war. Counterfeiters set up mobile mints, moving from town to town. Some even used molds stolen from real mints. The result? Confusion, transaction friction, and eventually economic breakdowns. By the late 1400s, the cracks in the system were growing, and the world was changing. Strong centralized monarchies were emerging. Trade was becoming more international, and the need for reliable standardized currency was becoming obvious. In England, the royal mint began consolidating control. The French crown followed suit. Across Europe, the ability to mint currency was gradually taken away from local authorities and brought under national governments. Coins were now uniform in shape, design, and content. Fraud dropped, inflation stabilized, and large-scale trade became easier. This was the birth of the modern centralized monetary system and the end of the medieval decentralized model. But history has a funny way of looping back around. Today we're watching the rise of cryptocurrency, a new kind of decentralized money, not made of silver or gold, but of code and consensus. Bitcoin doesn't rely on a king or a bank. Like medieval money, it's verified through a network of independent actors. Like medieval money, it exists outside centralized control. And like medieval money, its value depends on trust. But trust is fragile, and that's the lesson we need to remember. The medieval system worked well until it didn't, when too many mints debased their coins or too many fakes flooded the market. The system collapsed under its own weight. And today, we're already seeing cracks, scams, hacks, pump and dump schemes, projects built on promises rather than proof. We're still figuring out how to manage decentralized systems at scale. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it does rhyme. So were there cryptocurrencies in the past? Not exactly, but there was decentralized money, and it worked for a while. It was flexible, localized, and built on real-world trust. But when that trust eroded, when too many bad actors entered the system, the structure collapsed and centralization returned. If we're serious about building sustainable, decentralized systems today, we need to learn from the past. Because no matter the technology, coins or code, every monetary system has one point of failure: trust. Lose that, and everything else falls with it.